So we have John Werner, is the founder and CEO of Imagination.
No worries. Sorry. Thank you, Dr. Ajibadi. All right.
Dave Blundin and James.
Here, Dave, sit there. All right. So this is a continuation, a little bit of upstairs. So James, you're irreverent. You wrote a really important blog post. At least it was important to me, called VC 3.0. Talk a little bit about why you wrote that and what you think was important in that. You took some time to frame those ideas and what came about from that, because we're going to talk about that, but I want to ground everyone, level set everyone about that document, because you really threw the gauntlet down. And I bet some VCs shook their head, says, there's James, he has these out there ideas, or others said, that's exactly right. He's saying what others can't say or won't say. But talk about the genesis of that piece and what made it so powerful in your mind.
Got it. So in 1991, when I was just out of college, I worked in venture capital for a short time at GTE New Ventures. And then I got a job as an associate with Battery Ventures in Boston in 1994. And at the time, and so now I've become a historian of this whole
Netscape
venture capital industry because I've been riding it and playing in and around it. Then I started 4 companies that I was the CEO of and got the venture back. So I was on that side for 25 years. Point is, and now I've started a venture firm. So now that I'm called NFX, and now that I'm in the thing, running it, I have to think, how does this intersperse between the technologies, the founders, and the investors, right? Technologies, founders, investors, and then the customers are all over the place. So, but it's really those 3 pieces. And so I've been thinking about it for a lot of years. And at one point, I was publishing about every month on the NFX blog, and then I just got constipated because I couldn't write anymore because I couldn't get these ideas out of my head, and I couldn't figure out how to write them down in a way that would be accurate. And so it took me about 13 months to actually write this article.
And what are some of the most shocking, counterintuitive, damn, I can't believe he said that, drop the mic moments in that document?
I don't know which those would be, but a couple of things that are important in there, basically that when I was in the industry in 1994, there was about 40 active venture capital firms, maybe 150 people doing our job in the United States. And now there's 32,000 of us, people who are getting income from deploying capital into private tech companies. And that's the first thing, that people just haven't ideated. And the reason we know there's 32,000 is because there's a website called signal.nfx.com where about 400,000 founders a month go to find.
It's a coincidence that NFX is in the URL?
It's a coincidence. It's a free tool we built for millions of dollars, literally, because as founders, we hate saying no to people, and we say no 99.6% of the time. So we have to give them something, like just go here, click on this button, and there's another 1,400 people who might invest in your project. And so it assuages our own feelings as founders of getting all the rejections we got when we were CEOs. So we've started that about 8 years ago with 1,400 VCs, and the VCs have put their profiles on it. There's now 32,000 profiles on there. That's how we know there's 32,000 GPs out there. So that's one thing. Another thing is to realize that the entire venture capital industry is just a function of the software technology window. So you have these technology windows, like for instance, automobiles opened up in 1899 and closed in 1928. That's when all of the big automobile companies were started. After 1928, there were none until Tesla, when we had a new technology at its base. Same thing with railroads. It was good to do a railroad between 1830 and 1870, but after that, nobody who started a railroad made any money. So all these things have windows. Software is just a technology. It's going to have a window. I don't know how long it lasts, but the window opened in 1994 when we had the browser. And prior to 94, there was no venture capital industry to speak of, as I mentioned. And now it's huge, as I mentioned. And so everyone thinks that, oh, venture capital is just venture capital. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not even sure that business model works without software, because the margins are so much higher, the growth rates are so much higher, the regulations are so much lower, the number of people you need on your team is so much lower. So there's so many advantages to software that cause the venture capital industry to come along. And once you have all this money searching for founders, then the founders show up. So now we've got millions of founders worldwide, tens of thousands of investors, and we call it the startup industrial complex. And as I go to speak at MIT and Harvard and Stanford, I get all these young people talking to me. I'm like, they don't realize that they're inside this thing that just wasn't here 30 years ago, called a startup industrial complex. And so their whole lives and how they're thinking about their careers is a function of where they are in the curves there. And I just want to let them understand that. So as I said in the thing, I want you to know what water you're swimming in if you're a founder. If you're doing an AI company and you're a founder, you need to know the water you're swimming in, because you know that parable, right? You go to ask fish, how's the water? And the fish say, what's water? And founders, as I was as a founder, was like that.
That parable, but I saw you doing the fishing one, but no, it's a good one.
Question about that data, though. When I read it, and the data really jumped out at me, so then I did the math. So I divided the 32,000 VCs by the $300 billion in assets, and it only comes out to $8 million per VC per year.
Yeah, that's right.
Explain that.
That's because you've got a lot of people investing 100,000, a lot of people investing $1 million.
So a ton of angel.
Yeah, a ton of angels and a ton of seed funds at the emergent stages. But you see it up at the Series B and C as well. The competition there is just off the charts.
Yeah.
The valuations they're paying, the speed at which they have to do their diligence. I mean, I remember 4 years ago, we declared that we would invest or not invest in you in 9 days. And now 9 days is long. Like, you literally have 4 or 5 days. Like, you get a call on a Wednesday, you got to make a decision.
Yeah, it bugs me like, I'm sure this bugs you like crazy too. The partners in the funds love it because it spares them doing a lot of homework.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a pop quiz. You're like, well, nobody could be ready. It's a pop quiz. And so when the people looking for the money are like, you don't have time, they actually, rather than say, no, I need time to actually study this, they go, great, I'm glad I don't have time. Here's a check.
Yeah, it's created some sloppiness.
So Dave, you and James are two alphas in your firms. You read his manifesto. He doesn't call it that. I thought there were some really powerful statements in it. I think you're being humble and not kind of saying this was counterintuitive or this was shocking. What do you think of what he had to say and what's relevant?
I'm glad you said manifesto, because
do you not agree with some of what he's saying?
well, when we were on stage earlier, I was calling it a blog. I was looking for the right word. Manifesto is the word I should have come up with. It's a readable, contained thing. You can read it very quickly. That covers everything going on in a beautiful way. It's very Princeton-like. Like okay, I want to touch on everything in a perfectly accurate way, but do it in a nice, concise format. So everyone should read it, for sure.
Thank you.
I didn't see anything in there that I disagreed with at all. What I did see a couple things that shocked me, and I had to kind of research like why. One of them is right as the internet took off, there were all these IPOs, and then the market shut down, and you can see the IPOs tapering off, and that's exactly what you would expect. And so then you're in kind of steady state, but then there's this huge spike in IPOs 3 years ago, and now the market's been dead. I mean, like dead, like no time in history, like worse than the dot-com bust, dead for 3 years straight. And I was like, that is bizarre, and that's a real problem in terms of exit events for the kind of 2019 vintage funds. So it's like, how is that possible? But it was all SPACs. The SPACs destroyed the entire market, and it hasn't come back. And so now the question is, like, is it going to come back? Are people just afraid of new issuances?
Yeah, I think it will come back. I think people will forget, just like they forgot the last crash. But yeah, I think, we always knew in the 90s that SPACs were the things of, the under creatures under the bridge, and only people from there would do SPACs, trolls. Yeah. And then you saw people like Chamath and everybody else getting into SPACs. So there was a lot of people in New York who had 5, 6, 8 SPACs going. It was a nasty money grab that destroyed confidence and belief in the product that our founders are producing for the markets. And it's had serious impacts, but yeah, no, it'll be back. I think what's going to happen is we're going to get 2 or 3 or 4 good ones.
Yeah.
And then the confidence will come back.
I have a question about that, actually. So one thing that really bugs me is that the first IPO in a long time is CoreWeave, which is holding up pretty well. That's the good news, but it's not like all these other AI companies. It's got a huge amount of debt. It's got a huge amount of physical assets. So the analogy I like to use is, look, Yahoo went public, and that triggered the whole wave of IPOs in the dot-com era. But Yahoo was like the other companies. CoreWeave now is the bellwether, but CoreWeave is not really like the pipeline of companies coming up behind. Does that work?
Yeah, no, it doesn't worry me. We'll just get one that looks like everybody else. We'll get one. I mean, the challenge we're having is that more and more money is going into the venture industry, and that's enabling these companies to essentially do IPOs in their Series C or Series D, right? I mean, OpenAI is still private, and they just raised $40 billion, right? So most of the investment capital is coming through these private things like venture firms like we run, rather than going into the public markets, which I think isn't great for equality and equity. But it's going to continue because more and more of us will be there. And like I said in the article, we're going to go from 32,000 to 65,000 because you're going to need all these people to keep moving all this money as it comes out of the IPO and into the private window. And
yeah. So, little interesting side note, Dave and I do this dinner quarterly at the general's house, and the general was a French guy who was a quartermaster in the U.S. Army during World War II, and he came back and wanted to help GIs, and he wrote a $7,000 check to what became Digital Deck.
Yeah.
And it was two guys who worked at Whirlwind. He was a professor at Harvard Business School, and he's considered the first modern VC.
That's right.
So, we're at 23,000 or whatever, but that it was in Boston that something started. So let me ask you this, James. How can VCs use AI to find winners without accidentally screening out truly unconventional outlier founders? I mean, I think you pride yourself in being a great talent scout. This is about AI, this summit, and as you think about the future of VC, AI is going to be part of that due diligence process.
Yeah. I'm not sure that there's a need for my job in 15 years, maybe even 12.
A lot of people would not admit that, or people in a public setting.
2.5 years ago, I told my team, I'm like, see if you can replace me in 3 or 4 years. And that's what we've been trying to do. We've been trying to figure out if we can replace me. It'd be easier for them and for me. I think we have a team of 12 that are working on this. I know there's a lot of firms working on this. There's been a lot of companies that have come to us and said, we're going to build this and sell it to all the venture firms. The problem is that there's not a big enough market, really, and most venture firms won't buy it and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So, but AI will actually change everything about how the venture industry works. And we look at it as sourcing, analyzing, deciding, and supporting. Think of that as the 4 stages of venture. AI will impact 1, 2, and 4 dramatically, and everyone will pretend it's not impacting number 3, which is the deciding, but it will. In fact, Google...
No longer pin the tail on the donkey, it's going to be...
It's going to be an AI. It'll be smarter than me. Yeah. It'll absolutely be smarter than me. And
that's bold for you to say.
Of course it's going to be smarter than me. It can remember everything.
Yeah.
It can analyze for 24 hours. I have to sleep. So, of course it's going to be smarter than me. And but right now what we're working on is the sourcing part. And you asked about how do you get good things. I think that right now, through human error, we miss on exciting companies already. I don't know that we will miss on more with AI or less. So I think it will improve.
Yep.
I think it will improve, but it's also, by the way, I think we all agree, or I believe, this is so much more random than most investors want you to believe. What they want you to believe is that they have the gut, they have the insight, they have, at least they tell the LPs that. And in the end, it's so much random stuff that goes on where you thought a company was dead and then boom, suddenly it's worth a few $1 billion. Or a company that's worth $1 billion like Jasper or whatever, and now they're not worth hardly anything. So I think we have to admit there's randomness to both the entry about who gets money, how they get money, why they get money, and then also the exit as well.
So I have one more question, then Dave, I want you to bring us home. And James, I don't know if you realize this, but I think of you every day. Was eMode your first company? So when I bike home from here to my home, I always go by your first office from eMode, and I was in your living room helping you come up with names. I don't think you picked any of my bad suggestions, and then you changed it to Tickle.
I came up with the bad suggestion, so not your fault. It's my fault. I had to change it 2 years later. It was such a bad thing.
But every day I go by, that has that pop-out window, so I think of you every day. So 5 years into VC 3.0, let's assume VC 3.0 happens. What single development do you think will most surprise industry insiders today? Now, maybe you just said it already, or is there's something else 5 years from now, which is like a lifetime in this AI moment?
I think people will be surprised at how many people continue to want to be venture capitalists when the returns keep going down.
Yeah, like Goldman Sachs. Everyone wanted to work in Goldman Sachs in the 90s. That's changed now.
Yeah.
It seems like every kid wants to.
Yeah, if you want to understand why the world is the way it is, think about status. How do people get their status? In Boston, you get your status by publishing books and being academic. How do you get your status in New York? By being rich and having expensive things.
Post-economic.
Yeah, and look at what people get their status from, and they're going to want to be venture capitalists. I'm investing, I'm deciding. Da, 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 da. So I think it's going to continue, and the returns will continue to go down. So think of Los Angeles. You go there, and there are people who are waiting tables for 30 years, waiting for their big break, and they're making 34, 40 grand a year. They're willing to do that on the hope of the lottery ticket.
Harrison Ford was a carpenter, and he got picked up.
And venture capitalists will be the same in another 10 years.
You're looking to be an actor. All right, Dave, let's mano a mano. Let's see what you guys got. This isn't Jerry Springer, so no chair throwing.
So something that came up earlier, and I wonder if you worry about this. So we had Radina Cesari up on stage, and she said, look, I'm not investing in foundation technologies around AI. I'm investing in the use cases. And I totally get it, because you cannot go wrong right now with the use cases. But the thing that worried me about it is that it sucks up all the capital. And meanwhile, around here, there are some people who will then go uninvested, who have incredible breakthroughs. But because the VCs are just having a field day right now, like, you just cannot go wrong with an AI vertical use case right now. So they end up just overlooked.
That might be. That might be, but I find it a little hard to believe, given how much money has come into the space. The competitive level out in the valley, like if you're having trouble raising money here, just come out to the valley. Like, people will fight over you, like they'll get in fisticuffs. There's so many venture capitalists there. And I think we announced before that Andreessen is raising a $20 billion AI fund. And they're already deploying it like drunken sailors to begin with. And it's just going to get more so. So the number of people being funded is almost well beyond what it should be in a rational market. It's a little bit like expanding Major League Baseball 40 years ago, remember? Yeah. Apparently the baseball used to be better, now it's not, because there's 8 extra teams which absorb. So you have to have like 2%, 98th percentilers instead of 99. So it might be that we're overfunding, and I don't think we are, because I think AI is the thing, and it will be for until I die. Along with biotech. But I think that if we coach them well enough, I think they should be able to raise. And if they can't raise, then it's probably the team's fault, and they need to merge with another team who has a good fundraiser.
Well, I think that's a good segue into a follow-on question. When I see teams that we send out west, if they're very show busy, they're very articulate, they get funded in a heartbeat. If they have the most incredible technical breakthrough known to man, it's described in equation. They talk very easily to Daniela Roos or Alexander Amini. They go out west and they just completely get blown off. Liquid AI.
Yeah.
Liquid AI.
Yeah.
World changing, completely blown off on the West Coast.
Yeah. It's a whole.
In your opinion, they may not say that.
It might be a hole that you can exploit as an investor here to take on those companies, which I think you've done. So I think that's fantastic that there's enough inefficiency still left so that investors with insight can get good returns. I would say to you that on the West Coast, they prioritize sales more, not completely only, but more than they would here, and the go-to-market and the speed. Well,
just to drill in on that, the quandary there is a company like Liquid needed $200 million, and so it's a fit for a $60 billion fund. Out here, we completely understand the implications, but our fund size is, $300 million. It would absorb the entire fund doing the one deal. We can't do it.
Can't do it.
So it's stuck.
Yep, that's right.
What are you reading these days, James?
Oh, I've got about 8 books on my bedside. Some of it is, I'm reading a lot of Faulkner again, trying to get my love back for the real words. I'm reading a book on the invention of the Bible and how it was written, the King James Bible. And then I've got a whole bunch of stuff on, I'm not reading books on AI because even the blogs from 4 weeks ago are too old. I don't think.
So Johnny Ho, who was on the stage and will be upstairs later today, the co-founder of Perplexity, I was with him last weekend, and he said, I used to take weekends off. Now I feel like if I miss a day, I've missed a month in AI time.
So I would encourage book writers to create videos and blog posts and tweets. It's just, we are in the most delicious technological window of your lifetimes right now. And the openness to opportunity, the openness to invention, the openness to your creativity has never been higher, and it will never be higher again in my lifetime, is my guess, unless you're in biotech.
Yep.
And I encourage you all to get out there with your ideas and mix it up and take it in little bites, because taking these long sort of, thesis academic, it's just, no, guys, it's a lot of tactics. Sales needs to be emphasized. You've got to deploy. Do
you think the AI VC of the future that you were describing will actually be better at understanding deep tech than the VC of today is very subject to bullshit?
Absolutely. Look, when I raised money for my fourth company, it was a healthcare IT company, and finding a firm that knew both IT and health.
No.
What?
Voodoo.
Called JIF.
JIF, oh yeah.
It was called JIF. We raised $68 million for it over time, but it was a real slog because there was literally 5 or 6 people in the country who had both healthcare and IT in their brain. And otherwise, I was just dealing with venture firms where they were fighting each other. They hated each other because they had different investment models and whatnot. Yeah. And the firms were collapsing while I was fundraising from them. It was very hard. It was a real strategic disadvantage for our nation that we don't have great venture capitalists in healthcare and software. And the AI will be great at it. Mm-hmm. It'll know everything about both.
Yeah. All right, last comments. Both of you, James first, Dave second. Share something that people don't know in this VC industry that you know.
Easy start. Just as of the last really 3 or 4 weeks, if you want to keep up with everything that matters, you can talk to Gemini 2.5, and in a week or two, you'll be able to talk to O3 full, ChatGPT O3 full, and you can point it right at your article, and you can say, tell me about it, or write it a real, most of the research documents written in research land, PhD land, are deliberately as obscure and hard to read as humanly possible. And that seems to be the way you get a PhD. But you can dump all that garbage.
Now you can write a PhD as you're riding the elevator, and you can have other AIs read that PhD and have a conversation about it.
You know what changed in the last couple of weeks is that you dump all that into Gemini 2.5. It's actually really fun to talk to.
Yeah. For time, I got to jump to Andrew upstairs. What do you know that other people don't know?
Whoa, I don't know. I don't have one for you. I thought that one was good.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So you guys are fast friends, and I think we got to bridge East and West Coast. I know you have roots here, and you had kids go to school here, but you're very proud and bullish of Silicon Valley. But I think this is a mega region in the world, and we can be more than the sum of the parts.
Agreed.
Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
So.